I'm on a journey to get better, and I want to do it with you. And I'm not just focusing on physical health, I'm focusing on everything: emotional wellness, spirituality, finances, relationships, and so much more. Every week, it will be my personal goal to bring us, the world's leading healers, experts, and game changers, to share groundbreaking secrets and tips to getting better in all areas of life. Getting better isn't easy, but it's a whole lot easier when we can do it together. Welcome to Better Together with me, Maria Menounos. Happy Monday, everybody. Glad to be back in the saddle with you all today. Our quote of the day comes from our guest of the day. Smile and laugh more. It will keep the energy vampires away. Dr. Judith Orloff, author of the amazing book we're focusing on today, The Empath's Survival Guide. Thanks to Stephanie, who found this book about a year ago and brought her onto the show.
Yeah, I found it searching. I don't even know how I found it, but it was such a blessing for the reasons that you guys talked about, where you had revelations.
So many.
I had the same thing where I was like, oh my God, I figured it out.
Yeah.
You know, like our whole lives were told, you're so sensitive.
Yeah.
God, I know.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting too, because I was laughing when she was like, do you love nature? I'm like, Steph loves nature.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, we literally will sit in the sun and just wait for it.
Yeah. So we have a great guest today. Before we get to that, let's talk about some shit.
Oh my God, literally. That was such a good pivot.
You know that I'm a basketball fan, and you know I'm a Celtics fan, and this just story I just can't not talk about, even though it happened last week after the show. Paul Pierce, one of my favorite players, he's my favorite Celtic, of course, revealed something really important last week. So if you're a Celtics fan, you know the Celtics in 2008 made it to the NBA Finals. We actually eventually won the championship. It was a huge deal. And game one, all of a sudden, Paul Pierce goes down, and we are in shock. His knee, he's grabbing it, he's injured. We're freaking out. They wheeled him out in a wheelchair. I remember my eyes welling up and thinking, this is it. We lose him, we're done. Right? Like any basketball fan thinks when their number one player goes. Mortified. I can't even tell you. And then he comes back running out, totally triumphant. And by the way, they should do this as like a ploy sometimes, because the energy from the crowd, you just can't beat that later, right? Like they should do this. These are techniques, people, to win. So, of course, for years, I guess there's been controversy over it. And this past Wednesday night, marked the 11th anniversary of that infamous game. And Paul Pierce, who's now an analyst for ESPN, took the opportunity to finally offer an explanation. Oh, this was so good. So he basically said he had to go to the bathroom. And they kind of start egging him on. And apparently he had an accident, people. And yeah, it was really eye-opening as a fan, because at first I felt like, wait a second, I cried for you. And as I was telling Stephanie the story, I was in the kitchen, Stephen, and I had the chills telling you the story about this playoff game. And it's the Celtics versus the Lakers. And Paul goes down. And I remember vividly being so freaked out. And then now to find out it's because he shit himself.
It's crazy because, I mean, I'm sure you remember what he said when he got back on the court, like kind of.
I don't remember.
Oh, I thought.
Tell me.
Well, because you're such a diehard. But 11 years. So it was 11 years ago. He said, after he played the game and all was good, he said, I think God sent this angel down and said, hey, you're going to be all right. You need to get back out there, show them what you've got.
Oh, no, he didn't. I don't remember that. That's great.
That's scamming to a whole new level.
Yeah, God sent an angel with new underwear and new shorts. Honestly, I freaking love him for telling the truth.
Me too.
And I thought it was really, really funny, and I had to talk about it. But On to other stuff. It was my birthday weekend. It was also Steven's birthday weekend. Uh, and I decided kind of last minute I was going to throw myself a little something because Kevin was going to be out of town at his college reunion. And so I decided to get a small group together. It was 15 people. And I had a little taco bar and I rented a karaoke machine. So, Steven, I don't know if you watch my Insta stories, but there was some karaokeing that went on. So
Some.
I rented a karaoke machine, had no idea how this was going to work out. And when Steph and I tested it, I realized, oh, this is going to be good. It was a good machine. We had the big screen, the whole scam. And maybe it was pretty early on, like around 9, I think I started.
Yeah.
And we started with a little, Gwen Stefani. I ain't no holla back girl.
Classic.
It was just an innocent karaoke night that just started going more and more south as the night went on. Bunch of my neighbors I'm really close with, so they all came over. One of my neighbors was overserved. She mopped the floor with her body. She was just on the floor most of the night. It was really funny. No judgment because I've been there. Not on my floor specifically, but maybe on other people's. We were such maniacs.
Oh my God.
And so I scream sang for about, I would say 5.5 straight hours. So for some reason, and I was driving home from our meeting at AfterBuzz, and I started playing the soundtrack to A Star Is Born. And so for some reason, that soundtrack got stuck in my head, and I thought I was Lady Gaga, and I was performing Shallow all night long. People would be like, hey, Maria, you think you can do Shallow? Of course. Personal request? Yes. And then, I'd start singing. I would do the whole thing. Guys,
I can't believe you still can sing.
I was such an animal. Casamigos tequila flowing. We had the whole thing. And I didn't stop. I sang that song maybe 6 full rounds.
Yeah.
And I woke up and my throat was all blood. Yeah. Actual blood. So I didn't know if I had vocal cords left. So I was like spitting in the sink and I saw blood and I'm like, what? So then I looked down my throat and I saw a big blob of blood all the way down my throat. It was crazy.
I've never seen that.
I've never either. And so I realized at the end of the night, I decided to go back into binge eating the Tostitos that were there, the scoops. And so perhaps because, I had sang for 5 hours, and I had been drinking, maybe I didn't chew them properly and they scraped the back of my throat. That's the only explanation I have because I had a voice the next day because I used my diaphragm. And so, yeah, that was...
It wasn't amateur singing. You were really singing.
I was going for it.
Who did the gravelly, ununderstandable male voice?
Well, I played Bradley Cooper many times.
Oh, you did Bradley Cooper a lot.
I did Bradley Cooper a lot, and then I'd assist the female on Lady Gaga because, of course, I did this stomping with the foot thing to gain my powers. I was like, and I'd grab my energy from my foot. I was a maniac.
Oh.
I'm so glad it was just us, like a small, teeny group to embarrass myself in front of.
No, it was you in your prime.
It was funny.
Yeah,
I had
hilarious.
But by the way, I had the best night. So the moral of the story is throw yourself a little teeny party. We did it inside the bar in the house. And so it felt like we were in those like Korean karaoke places.
Yeah.
So when you go in there, you only go with a small group. And so, yeah. It was really
so
fun.
good.
Yeah.
But you need to get that karaoke machine.
I know, I'm going to make one.
Yeah. It fits you too well.
It's too fun. Kevin will definitely divorce me. It will be over. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then the next day, we talked about that night most of the day and laughed, and then went to Gay Pride.
Yes.
Steph and I rocked out some really colorful outfits and went to see Megan Trainor perform.
So good.
And she was so sweet. So Dimitri, who does my hair and makeup and is my other half of my life, does her as well. So they conspired together. So when we showed up to the hotel room, her entire family was in there. They're all singing happy birthday to me and had a cake for me. And she was so sweet. Even like on her performance on stage was, said happy birthday, and it was cool. They're from Cape Cod, so they're Massachusetts people.
It was
Massholes.
so cute. It was a total surprise. The cake was next level.
Ah, best cake ever.
They were so nice.
I
So good
know.
to meet other nice people in the
Really
industry.
nice family.
Really nice.
It was funny because the stage manager, I was chatting with her. She said, never do you ever say, I can't wait for the headliner to get here. She's like, but with
Yeah.
Megan and her family, we literally can't wait for them to come because they're so fun and so nice. So I made sure I told her that after. She's like, really? Is that
Oh,
what they said?" I go,
yeah.
yeah, most people don't pass on the compliments. So I figured I'd let you know what people are saying behind the scenes.
Always pass on the compliments.
Yeah.
It's so weird. What are you keeping it in for?
Yeah. And she's so talented. She gives such a good show. She has
Yeah.
such a great voice.
Totally.
So I had a lot of fun. So we did gay pride, and then yesterday I really slept a
Good.
lot and then did some work.
Good.
And so my birthday weekend was over. Birthday.
Still a month though.
It's my birthday month.
When Kev gets back in town, they're still around too.
I didn't do my Ayurveda AM routine those 2 days. I am going to be honest, but I'm back on it today. The tongue scraping, the dry brushing, the oil pulling. And I will say, the oil pulling I thought was going to be really hard. It's not. It's super easy.
And you're
So-
doing for 15 minutes or 10?
Probably 10 minutes, because what I do is I go into the bathroom, I instantly put the oil in my mouth and start swishing it around. Then I dry brush.
Mm-hmm.
Then I get in the shower, I get out, I moisturize, and then I'll spit out the oil, brush my teeth, and then tongue scrape. So that's my rhythm.
For new listeners, this is from our Sahara Rose podcast, which was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, on Ayurveda kind of 101 for people. So it's crazy. Once you start scraping your tongue, you see so much
Oh, no.
gook. It's disgusting what comes off of there. And I used to brush my tongue with my toothbrush, but it's not enough. So you just have to be really gentle when you scrape, because the first time I did it, I started scraping and I bled. Because I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, there's
Yeah,
like
'cause
a theme with me and bleeding, I
Yeah.
guess, right now. But
Mouth bleeding is the theme of the week.
Oh my God.
yeah, but it's really cool. I really like it.
I've been doing the oil on my skin because my skin was really dry, and dry brush, but I haven't done the tongue scraping. I
Yeah,
need
if
to
you
do.
buy the oil you put in the summary, is that what you call it, or the
Mhm. In
description?
this, yeah,
I always forget what to call it.
summary description of the
Okay.
episode.
So when you go to the Sahara Rose episode, in the summary or the description, Steph put the things you can buy.
Mhm.
So if you buy the oil, the tongue scraper comes in it. So you
Oh,
don't need to
yeah.
buy the tongue scraper
Yeah.
separately. It was really cool. So yeah, applying that technique. And that's been cool. And you know what else I did this morning? So maybe because Kevin's gone, I realized I'm using my social media more.
No, really.
And I was so good. I was really, really disciplined with it. So I moved the folder all the way to the back of my phone. And so now I have to go really searching for it. I'm realizing anytime I go to my phone, I don't see it. So I don't use it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's been better since he's been gone.
Yeah. Oh, no. Listen, when you have more alone time, you actually do stuff.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm sure without me, he's so much happier sometimes too, because he gets stuff done. He's not being interrupted by me and whatever my requests are. So, yeah. So,
Are you
That-
watching Black Mirror at all?
no.
Oh, okay. I thought that might have inspired some of the avoiding social media lately.
No, I just always want to. I hate social media. I like it in a very, condensed way. So I like interacting with people, but the addiction is just too much. And just that cycle. So and then the other thing I've been doing that's been really helping me lately is these green smoothies. Did I tell you guys what I'm putting in them?
Yeah.
Because they've been, I told you in the last episode. Yeah, those have really, really been helping me so much in my energy levels.
Yeah, I need to order some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're so easy, and especially because it's so hot already
Yeah.
now, and it's supposed to be the hottest summer I think in years.
Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, record heats.
Fun.
So we
You're
need
kidding.
some green smoothies.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, no, I wish.
Oh, my Lord. All right. Well, we have an amazing episode for you guys today. Thank you again for
Yes.
joining us on Better Together with Maria Menounos. We thank you for rating, commenting, subscribing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you love the show, please be sure to tell a friend. One of the things I've been seeing that I love is people will social their favorite episode. Share with us what's working, what you're learning, what you're applying. We'd love to hear via social media, via our email, bettertogetherwithmaria@gmail.com. And we'll share some of your comments at the end of the show. There was an interesting one for you, Stephen. I don't know if you noticed, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. But in the meantime, our guest today is a psychiatrist, an empath. She's on the UCLA psychiatric clinical faculty. Dr. Orloff is a New York Times bestselling author and also specializes in treating empaths and highly sensitive people in her LA-based private practice. Today, we're focusing on her book, The Empath Survival Guide, where she focuses on tactics for empaths, sensitive people, and really all of us in general, as well as teaches us what to do with toxic energy and emotional vampires. Without further ado, here is Dr. Orloff. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I am so excited because the Empath Survival Guide, I didn't even know I needed it until I read it last night, and I know so much more about myself now, and I understand so much more. And I think it's going to help a lot of people. I'm sure it's already helped so many people.
It's a revelation to find out you're an empath. I'm a psychiatrist and an empath, so I combine my psychiatric skills with being an empath. An empath is an emotional sponge and somebody who absorbs the energy and emotions and even physical symptoms from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes people don't realize they're empaths and they walk around with all these symptoms or all these fears, or all these emotions that aren't their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote the book to offer people skills and how to be a beautiful, sensitive, intuitive, loving, powerful empath and not take on the stress of the world.
Yeah, it's funny when you say sensitive because that's the word that has been used for so many people. You're so sensitive. You
Right.
gotta get a thick skin and blah, blah, blah. And you're changing kind of the whole view of that.
Oh, yeah, sensitivity is a gift. Being different is a gift. And we need to embrace these qualities instead of feeling shame or that there's something wrong with us.
Mhm.
I was brought up by two physician parents, and I was a little empath. And my mother, who was a physician who knew science and knew the physical body, would say to me, you need to become more armored. You need to have a thicker skin. And as a child, that's very demoralizing to hear. It felt like there was something wrong with me that I had to change, that I couldn't change, that I didn't want to change. And so children, empathic children, often get these negative messages they carry their entire lives with them.
And how do you get thicker skin when you're a little kid? Like,
Yeah.
how constructive is that?
It's not, but my mother loved me and she was doing her best. She didn't want me to be considered, quote, weird. That was
Mhm.
always her big thing. Or different.
Mm-hmm.
And I always was. I always, went on the road less traveled. I always was different. I never went with the masses. And that's just my nature. I mean, it's
Mhm.
neither better nor worse than anyone else, but it's just who I am. But she didn't want that in her daughter. She wanted somebody to go down the straight and narrow and not be so sensitive and not be so intuitive. And she loved me madly. So I just
Yeah.
want to say that for listeners who maybe had parents who didn't understand their sensitivities or maybe didn't know any better on how to
Mhm.
support them.
Yeah. I mean, the job of a parent, there's nothing harder in life. And they do their best. That's what I always say. I'm not going to fault my
Yeah.
parents for the things they did. They did the best that they could. Some things they just didn't know better.
Absolutely. But it's so important if listeners hear this and they were put down, you were put down for your sensitivities, you were too sensitive, you're overly sensitive, there's something wrong with you. Now, especially boys have a really hard
Oh,
time
yeah.
integrating that into being a powerful man. I mean, to me, the most attractive man is one that is sensitive and strong.
Mm-hmm.
Not overly feminized, but sensitive and strong. So I think sensitivity is a part of the power of a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we should probably start with explaining what an empath is for people who aren't quite sure.
An empath is somebody who doesn't have the ordinary filters that other people have. So we feel everything. If somebody is feeling anxious or depressed or has back pain or has some other pain symptoms in their body, we may pick it up in our own bodies. When I was little, I couldn't go to shopping malls or crowded places because I would walk in feeling fine and walk out anxious, depressed, have an ache or pain I didn't have before, nervous, whatever. And I didn't realize that when I went in this place filled with people and energy fields that extend way beyond the body, that overlap, an empath, sensitive, feels that. And so it's quite a dose. If you don't know how to work with that and not
Mm-hmm.
absorb it, it just comes right into your body. We're emotional sponges and we're very receptive to feeling your pain. And so that's one thing as a healthcare practitioner I've had to work with in myself. So when I see patients, I don't absorb their pain.
Yeah.
And, it's very possible. And I believe that it's important to hold space for people and not absorb their pain. So you don't need to. It doesn't help
Mm-hmm.
them. And it certainly doesn't help me. But being able to just be with somebody in their space and tune into them without taking on the burden of what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what is the difference between an empath and being intuitive? Like, as you're sitting here, I'm thinking about another scenario I hadn't even considered last night when I was identifying different parts of me. Um, so when I was little, I would know when my dad was sick. He was type 1 diabetic.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
would know if he wasn't even with me
Right.
that his sugar had dropped low. I even knew where he was. So I would say, Mom, dad's stuck at the other mall
Uh-huh.
and he can't get to us. So my dad's sugar would drop. He went to the wrong mall. He was supposed to meet us at one. I even knew where he went,
Wow.
which was crazy. But from a young age, I knew what was happening.
Yes.
So what is that? Is that intuition or is it both?
Well, it's what I call an intuitive empath. It's a particular type of empath where empaths are sensitive and they have these antennae that just feel into the world and feel into people, especially those that you love. And as an empathic child, an intuitive child, you loved your dad and you felt a connection with
Mm-hmm.
him. And so you were on the same wavelength as his body. And you could feel him miles away, what he was going through in the chain. You're
I
crying.
can't. I know. I cry.
That's so nice that you cry freely.
Ugh,
That's
I
beautiful.
cry too much, I think.
See, that's the thing, that too much is not too much.
Oh my God, Judith, I would cry at work. And people are like, you can't cry at work. And I'm like,
I
I
know.
can't help it. I feel. What am I supposed to do? Shut it off and be a mean, like cold person? I can't do it.
Good for you. Yeah,
So,
but an intuitive empath is somebody who's very tuned in with their gut feelings. You get a
yes.
gut feeling if somebody is healthy for you or not,
Yes.
or let's say you're going to get involved with a business deal with them, if it's a good one or not, if it feels comfortable, if it feels right.
Yeah.
To really tune into the body. Empaths are open to that, and one of their gifts is intuition. And so being an empath, coming into your own power, is listening to that still small voice inside you.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm being identified. I always just thought I had like intuitive powers, but I do feel that thing. Like even if someone's sick, I can go over their body and I can see where it is. I know
Yeah.
it sounds crazy, but like my uncle, I remember when he got cancer, I flew out to see him. Oh my God, I can't talk. And I had a Reiki healer come to work on him, and she was working on him in a room, and I was off in the other room, and I just kind of sat, meditated, and I started seeing spots.
Purple spots.
They were red. It was like, to me, I see things in red and green, like good and bad. And so I would see red spots popping up in different places in his abdomen. And I knew instantly that was the cancer. So then I was meditating on clearing it out. So I would like focus green, good to that. That's just how it works in my head. And every time I'd go around and clean each spot, it would pop back up. And I'm like, oh my God. And I would get so tired, and I kept trying and trying and trying. So long story short, my cousin came over and I said, hey, where is your dad's cancer? Because I have this weird thing that just happened and I felt it here, here, and here. And he goes, yeah, that's exactly where it is. And I'm like, okay. And then I felt even weirder. But so that's empathic, intuitive. You're an intuitive empath.
Exactly. You're an
Okay.
intuitive empath. And some intuitive empaths are healers. And so they know how to do the scanning method that you just described in your own mind or with their hands. It's something I
Yeah.
teach people in workshops, and how to scan and feel the body and feel differences in the body, and then to learn how to heal and send energy. As empaths speak the language of energy. And subtle energy, it's called prana, shakti. It's the biofield, but it penetrates our body, or chi in Chinese medicine. It penetrates our body and goes way beyond our body. So we give off a certain feeling, a certain presence. And empaths can pick that up. Even if somebody is smiling and being very
Yeah.
positive, if their energy field is negative, like an energy vampire, which is something I talk about in the book,
Yes.
very important to identify those people, your energy will go down. As an empath, if I'm around somebody who's draining me, I'll suddenly feel tired,
Yes.
or my eyelids get heavy. I feel like taking
Sick.
a nap, sick, like I have the flu, or like I can't move.
Yes. But by the way, when I read this last night, I started identifying people I didn't even realize were. Like,
That's
we
good.
joke about it when we're out at night. My husband and I will have a code when we're
Great.
around an energy vampire so that
Great.
we can save each other.
Yeah.
And so your definition of it was so much deeper and so much more accurate than I've ever seen before. And it like lit me up last night. There was like a light bulb moment.
That's wonderful. And that's great. Your husband could be in sync with you on that point.
Yeah.
'Cause that's very helpful to find somebody, like-minded person, a soul friend or soul relationship, to be there. Yes, I feel what you're feeling, as opposed to, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
with-
he's an empath as well. I was
Is
taking the
he?
test for him too. Yeah, for sure.
Ah,
Which I think is difficult for us.
yeah, to have two empaths in a household.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But empaths know how to pick up energy around people. So there are some people who raise your energy, and you love being around them. You want to be
Yes.
close to them. They bring you up higher. And there are others who are neutral, and there are others who bring you down.
Mm-hmm.
And you must learn how to identify that. If you're an empath, and even if you're not an empath, it's really smart to learn how to identify these people instead of talking yourself out of it. So I know a lot of my patients will pick this up and they'll say, oh no, I'm just making it up. This is such an amazing person. Now, how can I be feeling drained and horrible around them? No, but you have to honor your own body signals as an empath. If you don't, you'll suffer. As what happens with empaths is they get exhausted, they get anxious, they get depressed, all kinds of symptoms that are exacerbated around an energy vampire. That's another sign that your whatever symptoms you have just flare up
Yeah.
and get so much worse, where you have to honor this. Instead of talking yourself out of it, say, okay, my body's feeling this way. I'm not going to make this business deal with this person at this moment. I'm going to process it a little more and find out what I'm feeling. Or I'm not going to take this job, even though I'm offered a lot of money for it. I don't want to be sick in this position. So, health is always more important than,
Yeah.
the money that's coming in. So you have to feel harmonious in your own body with people, with situations, with jobs, with meditation practice. Meditation is very important for empaths to center themselves
Mm-hmm.
and to come back in and tune into their hearts, which is the most powerful energy in the world. And it's what feed empaths, the loving heart. What you feel around rescues.
Yeah.
What you feel around, what makes you happy, flowers and
Nature.
mountains and
It's nature and animals. That's it.
nature and animals. Empaths love nature and animals.
Yeah.
And so, not that other people don't, but empaths need to be around nature and animals.
Need.
Yeah.
Yes. When I was reading this last night, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly me. That's where I get my energy. I go out. When I'm on a walk, I smell every flower. like a crazy person. I'm just literally inhaling
Mhm.
everything, and I smell everything. I have a really powerful nose.
Empaths
So,
have a very strong sense of smell. They smell everything, good and bad.
yes.
And so if they go into an elevator where there's incredible perfume smell, it can feel like you're being nuked.
Yeah.
Whereas the other person is not an empath, oh, that's such a sweet smell, and you're dying there in the elevator.
Yeah. Oh my God, it made so much sense because I want to talk about the traits of an empath because it's the sensitivities to light. My husband makes fun of me sometimes because I can't handle yelling. I can't handle a lot of people. I mean, there are moments I can. So then I felt contradictory because I can have once in a blue moon a fun experience at a big event.
Mhm.
And I started dissecting it this morning. Like, okay, what big events can I handle when we're all on the same team?
Mhm.
So at a sporting event, when I have a team that I'm behind and I'm with mainly like my fans, let's say, I feel like there's a better energy with that because we're all united on the same goal. But if I'm at a concert and people are drinking. I went to one the other night and it was an amazing concert. There was one drunk person who literally almost ruined the whole night for me because he was so nasty and his energy was so cruel and he kept bumping and he wanted to start a fight. And I'm like, I can't be around this. And I started getting allergic and I'm like, I want to go home. I
Yeah,
want to go
yeah.
home now.
That's your body's symptoms really telling you, watch out, beware. But then a tool for empaths is learning how to set clear boundaries with people. I don't know if it would have been possible in that particular environment, but you could have moved yourself physically away from the drunk person who was
Mhm.
nasty and angry.
He eventually moved himself, which was funny because he sensed our energy.
That can happen where
Yeah.
they can go away. I had an experience the other night in the gym where I love working out. I love tuning into my body. I love that feeling. And there were a number of people in there who were slamming the weights down, grunting, groaning, making horrible, obnoxious noises. And I'm sitting there going, all right, what do I do? No, because you can't really go up to them and say, please don't grunt, and they make
Mhm.
horror. Anyways, I'm just sensitive to sounds.
Yeah.
And
That's why I
so,
can't go to the gym either. I can't, there's too many people. So I'm better Pilates one on one
yeah, yeah.
or on my hikes. I can't be around all of it. And I didn't understand that about myself. And because I'm such a happy kind of like outward person,
Hmm.
I didn't know that that's what was affecting me. Because I'm like, wait, no, I'm an extrovert. Why can't I be around all these people?
Hmm.
It didn't make
You
sense.
can be an extroverted empath and an introverted empath.
And that's what I learned last night.
Yeah.
So tell us why.
Yeah. Well, an introverted empath is somebody who prefers small groups or one-to-ones, really feels drained in large groups or large stadiums and those kind of events, really doesn't, they don't feel happy in those events. But an extroverted empath can go to those events and they love talking and they love small talk. That's another thing that empaths have a hard time with is small talk. If it's not going anywhere, I see
Hmm.
you're relating to that. Just, oh, it's so much effort.
Yeah.
But extroverted empaths sometimes love that. It's just the back and forth. It's the
I
human
switch
contact.
between the two. Maybe
Yeah,
because I'm a Gemini.
yeah,
I can do both.
yeah. And so if you're listening, you might be an extroverted empath or an introverted empath, but both need time to decompress after being with people.
Hmm.
And that's important. You just can't keep going, going, going. Empaths make the mistake who are in, very high-powered jobs. They don't take time to decompress or alone time, and they go from one thing to another,
Yeah.
and then that puts them on sensory overload, and then it's painful. An empath going on sensory overload where too much is coming at you too fast, the lights, the sounds, the people, the opinions, the anger, the feelings, everything, at that point, you don't want to get to that point, but sometimes inevitably you do. You need to decrease the stimulation, go in your bedroom. What I do is I go to my meditation spot and I get very quiet. I don't talk to people. I might close the curtains to make it darker and no sound, no interactions to bring my sensory level down. And you don't want to make decisions when you're on sensory overload because
Hmm.
it feels like nothing's possible. You want
Yeah.
to, I often think, I can't do this, I can't do that, but it's not true. It's just in that state, you have to be very kind and loving to yourself if you tend to go on sensory overload and just quiet it down. But most essentially, you need to take the time the time to have quiet.
Mm-hmm.
You need quiet time. You can't go from one thing to the next without paying a huge price, either physically or emotionally
Mm-hmm.
or energetically. You just can't. There's no way to do it. And so part of self-care for empaths is learning to take that time. Now, I have a do not disturb sign I put on a room in my house so that people don't bother me
Mm-hmm.
when I need to be alone. And they don't take it as an insult because they know it's not meant as an insult.
Yeah.
It's just that's what I need for myself.
Yeah. That was another big thing that I learned in the book last night was alone time, something I never really understood. And as I was taking my alone time last night, I was like, oh, this feels so good. I didn't realize I needed this.
Yes.
And now I feel like I have a huge tool in my toolkit that is going to save me.
It will save you. It has saved me so many times.
Yeah.
And I was an only child, so I was brought up with that alone time. And I would connect to the moon and the stars. I was always really connected to the moon. The moon has been my friend and my companion my whole life. I love it so much.
I'm the stars.
And the stars
I could stare
and
for
the universe.
hours and have. I'd be like, honey, come look at the stars with me. And he's like, no. I'm like, all right, fine. And I'll just go out and sit out there and get eaten by mosquitoes. But I just am obsessed with them.
Yes. Oh, it's so there's such a bigger world than our material world.
Yes.
Such a bigger world, and empaths can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Empaths can, because they're so open, and other people can feel that. I don't mean to say that, people who are listening who are not empaths can't feel it. You can feel it. You
Yeah.
can tune into it, but empaths don't have the filters. They don't have a way to not feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything is just this magnificent experience. Or it can be a difficult experience, but when you get around positive energy of oceans and water, taking a bath is my savior, getting in my bathtub, having the moonlight stream in
Ugh.
through I know it's heaven for us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I know. I have a hot tub outside, and when the moon is
Mm.
out and you're in the hot tub, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Right.
The other thing I was going to ask about, there are different type of empaths. So first, let's get through all the traits so that someone can understand themselves a little bit better. And in the book, you have a great test to tell you what level of empath you were. So I had 14, which means I'm one shy of like an extreme empath.
Right.
And there's also one online. But when you guys get the book, you'll be able to take one. And there are different tests throughout to kind of understand yourself. So let's talk about the traits of an empath. And then we can talk about the different types because that was really fascinating as well.
Well, you can self-diagnose as an empath. So if you take that 20-question self-assessment test, you can find out easily how much of an empath you are, if you are one or if you aren't one. So you just take the 20 questions, and some of the traits and the questions include, have I been labeled as, quote, overly sensitive all my life? Or do I replenish myself alone versus with people? Do I tend to absorb the emotions of other people or the stress of the people around me? Am I an over-helper? Do I tend to help other people so much it depletes me? Or do I take my own car places so that I could leave when I please? That's a tool for empaths, rather than staying stuck and trapped in an event when you want to leave. As I often have at the most 3 hours, but usually 1.5 hours is my time where I want to leave. And so I'll either bring my own car places or tell friends if I go with them, I leave early. So you have to know that about
Be prepared.
me. Be prepared. And also, do you love nature? Is another trait of an empath. Do you feel replenished in nature? Do you dream about forests and streams and animals and hawks and eagles? Do you love that? Have you ever been, labeled as different, or that you don't belong? Now, I often, wished for a spaceship to land in my front yard when I was a little girl to take me to my true home.
Oh my God.
I
remember
know.
reading that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh.
I know, but a lot of people feel that way. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my workshops, I would say, maybe almost half. But these are empaths.
I
So.
used to beg my stuffed animals to come to life.
Oh.
Beg.
That's another story. That's possible. Stuffed animals can take on energy, and when you activate them, they could become really powerful.
I just wanted one so bad. I was like, please. So when my pets came to me,
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
I've been
really?
waiting for you my whole life.
Yeah, definitely. But that kind of sweetness and that kind of vulnerability is part of being an empath, and that innocence, and also the ability to be a healer and help others.
Oh
As
my
you,
God, I can't get through this interview without crying. Wow, I haven't cried in an interview since surgery. That's crazy. Okay, sorry.
and being able to cry is so beautiful. Crying is a release of stress hormones in the tears. It's a emotional release. It's a form of connection. No, it's beautiful, and a lot of people are ashamed of crying.
Yeah.
I love to cry. I wish I would cry more.
Come hang out with me.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful, but being yourself as an empath, knowing the traits of an empath, taking the test, um, and knowing that you prefer maybe one-to-one interactions or parties with 3 or 4 people at dinner,
Hmm.
or maybe 2 people at dinner, not 20 or 100. So it's important to know that, and if it's true, you honor that. These are my needs. Especially children who are empaths, you don't want to overschedule them with too many play dates.
Yes.
You want them to be creative and have their imagination time alone. You want to give them their alone time. You don't want to tell them, oh, that your friend doesn't really exist, the imaginary one or whatever they're communicating with. You want to encourage your children to dream. There's a type of empath called a dream empath, where they love remembering their dreams and the
Hmm.
guidance they get from dreams. And
Yeah.
are you one?
Yeah, there were two different dream ones. So I've had multiple memorable experiences where I've had dreams. If I wake up and I remember them, they come true. But
Wow.
these are like big news events where it was like a shooting in a parking lot at a church. And I was like, oh my God, where is this going to happen? And I saw it was in Denver. I knew it was Denver. And then the next day in the news, shooting in Denver. And I knew whether people were okay or not.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even in the dream, it was like everybody was okay, but it was a shooting. Or like this boat crashed into a port in my dream in Greece. And all I could see were these like long cylinders and people were okay, and those were the life rafts. I didn't realize. So I've had so many of those dreams where I started to panic after a while because they were coming so fluidly.
Oh.
And I was working at the Today Show. I'm like, should I am I gonna be ahead of breaking news now?
Could
I
be.
actually told my executive producer, and I think that's when he thought I was definitely cracked out. I was like, hey, so I keep having these dreams, and so I had one last night. Think this is gonna happen. Just FYI. And I don't know why I decided to tell a jock from an Ivy League school something like that, because he definitely thought I was nuts, but I was right. It happened.
Hmm.
So,
How did he handle that?
oh, I mean, he thinks I'm a kook for
Oh.
sure. So, yeah,
But
we
this
didn't have
is
the best of relationships. We'll just say that.
Yeah, but this is what empaths experience. And to me, it's not a paranormal event that you're able to sense things either about people, about the future, about how to proceed in a situation. You just get a gut feeling or you get
Hmm.
information. And empaths who really embrace their abilities, this becomes just a natural part of who they are.
Hmm.
And when you're a child and you have an intuitive child and it's okay to be that, then they just grow up a very normal adult who's in touch with their intuition.
Yeah.
It's not woo woo, it's not weird. To the linear mind, it might sound weird. And
Hmm.
certainly not all empaths have this ability. But, those that do, don't be afraid of it. There's
It
no
scared
reason.
me.
I
I
know.
shut it
I
down.
know. I
I
know.
shut it down. I was like, I can't. This is too scary for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But I did use when you talk about the gut and the empathic intuition, I used that to treat my mom's brain cancer and have had incredible success with that, because I would ask and then it would come and I would hear it and I would go with that information. So I have
yeah.
a good way to process the information that comes in and believe it and understand it and say, oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Right.
Which is still wild to my kind of, if I'm not me thinking of it, I'm like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. But
Yeah. Yeah, but then you allow it to happen, and it
hmm.
only creates goodness and wellness. And I think medicine is really expanding. It's beginning to expand in terms of what we can do to help patients now, and with integrative medicine and certainly yoga and meditation being so enormously popular now, that's a way in to be able to see human beings in a different sense from an energetic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very useful if you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling depressed or anxious, and you're just trying to keep it together. This is really an important perspective in terms of how you can replenish yourself by rejuvenating your intuition and energy. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really important that you own that and be accountable for your own energy and what you give off. All of us can become energy vampires at times. Now, all of us can be victims, can
Mm-hmm.
be judgmental, can be critical, can be competitive, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We all have that in us. But the great thing about being aware of that is we can catch ourselves
Mm-hmm.
when we get into that and go, oh, okay, that again, and be very compassionate with yourself and shift out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the problem, though, with energy vampires who drain empaths are that they're unconscious. And either, if they're drinking and they're nasty, then that's a terrible combination. I mean, I
Yeah.
would have, for me, I would have just removed myself as far as I could from that person because it just is so unpleasant. And I've left dinner parties when that happens. I've left. I
Yeah.
politely excuse myself when it's just getting out of control.
Oh,
and
I
it's-
run.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I actually ran away from a party once, a couple months ago, actually. I
Ran
was
out
like,
the
honey,
door.
we're out, we're out, we're out, we're out, we're out, we're out, we're out. And I was trying to be polite and try to be polite because, I kind of stick out at these parties because they're like excited I'm here or whatever. And I'm like, I'm leaving right now. And I literally, the second I walked out the door, I ran to my car as fast as I could, sprinted
Yes.
because I was getting bitten. I had bite marks all over my body, Judith,
Mm.
all over my body.
Mm.
It was
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, but I hope people can get from our conversation that you can give yourself permission to leave. You don't have to stick it out. You can
Yeah.
leave very politely. You could say, I'm tired, or I need to go to the bathroom to get out of a situation. To
Yeah,
just give
let's talk
yourself,
about some of these great excuses we can use because you also were talking about setting your boundaries and that
Yes.
no is a complete sentence.
absolutely.
And I love that because I think these are the tools that we need whether we're empaths or not,
Mhm,
right? We
mhm,
should be able
mhm.
to have permission to be adults and to make adult decisions and
Absolutely. We have to be able to say no. If you can't say no, that's the first training as an empath you need to go through. You need to practice saying no to easy people. You don't start with your mother. The mother
Mhm.
is the hardest one usually.
Mhm.
And people, my patients always go, oh, but my mother. They go from not being able to set a boundary to doing it with the mother, and that isn't what you do. You just find somebody who is intruding on your boundaries. Let's say somebody always, pushes in the tag on your clothes and you feel that as an intrusion, to be able to say, and I appreciate it if you didn't do that. Thank you. That's it. And so when you set a boundary, you do it very quickly and
Mhm.
you do it with a nice tone of voice. You're not snippy, you're not judgmental, you're not angry, as that won't work. Those vibes will, really not work for you and will work against you. But if you just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that, or I appreciate it if you didn't stand, right in my face when you talk. That's a hard one. And sometimes people will get right in your face when they
Mhm.
talk and then start telling you their life stories, or the chronic talker who just like, won't stop and they don't take a breath, so you don't know.
Oh my God, yes. I've had people, they turn blue in the face because they won't take breaths. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Right, exactly. But what do? These are practical situations for sensitive people who always want to be polite. They're afraid of
Yes.
being impolite. And what do? You take a step backward, and then what do?
They take a step forward.
Exactly.
I know.
Then what do you do in those situations?
Well, you can put your foot, this is what I've done. I put my one foot out far enough. So I do a stance that's like my foot is the barrier now. So you can't come more forward.
Mhm.
And then I can lean back on the other leg
That's a good one.
until I can escape.
But it's you have to learn how to interrupt,
Yeah.
and that's
It's
hard.
so hard. I know my best friend hates me because I'll sit and talk to the same person all night because I feel so
Mhm.
guilty to leave.
Right, I know, but that's draining.
Yeah.
That's draining. I won't do that. I mean,
So what do you say in that moment?
I just say, I'm so sorry I have to interrupt you, but I need to go and talk to these other people, or I need to get to the bathroom, or I'm going to an appointment.
Yeah. The bathroom's an easy one to say
Bathroom's
because
great.
you can't control that. You got to go.
Yeah, and they understand it. It's socially
Yeah.
acceptable. But you want to get out in a good way. You don't have to sit there for 2 hours or on the phone. You know, another type of energy vampire I write about is the victim who calls you on the phone and you've had a long day at work and here you come and the phone rings and here's your friend. Oh, I had such a horrible day, you know, and my mother doesn't understand me and my boss doesn't appreciate my work and my boyfriend left me again and one thing after another. And
Is that the dumper?
it's a dumper. And but you want to,
Explain the dumper. That was really cool too.
yeah, the dumper is just somebody who dumps on you all their problems, and when you try and offer a solution, because empaths are fixers, they say yes, but they're not interested in an answer.
Yeah, I've cut those people out of my life.
Yeah,
And some of them are fun and they're sweet people. I just can't do it. I can't waste my energy. I can't waste my good advice in my mind.
right.
At least in my mind, it's good advice. I can't waste it if you don't want to hear it. So why are you dumping on me if you don't want any help?
Right. Well, they just like to dump. That's just a personality style that you have to learn to deal with if you're an empath. And what I say is that, you know, I could listen for a couple of minutes. I'm really tired after a long day, and you can call me back if you want to get into solutions. But I'm not able to listen more than 2 minutes right now. No, and if they say, "What kind of friend are you?" You know, I'll say, "I'm a great friend. I love you madly, but I just can't listen. I'm too tired." That's it. But that in a very short, you look surprised.
I am in shock. Yeah, because I couldn't do it. I mean, I'm sure I could, but to me, a friend is supposed to be emotionally supportive. And if you're putting a boundary of 2 minutes, isn't that saying that you don't care?
If a
Because
friend,
how can you advise them if they don't tell you the whole story, which takes 4 hours, Judith? I'm kidding.
no, 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 you have to ask them to just, you know, get to the point.
Yeah.
But if a friend is going through a real crisis and they need you to be there, of course you're going to be there
Yeah.
for them. But if they're just going around in their cycle of yes buts and they don't want to listen, and you've listened to this 100 times, you have to say, you know, 2 minutes. I'm sorry, I can't do
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
You know, and also you have to say this is too much information. Because people just unload all this information that may not be interested in.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, because I'm a doctor, they talk to me a lot about the details of their medical history. When I'm not their doctor, I just meet them, or somebody, you know, sent me an X-ray over the email of somebody I didn't know, and it's just not something I'm able to do because as an
Yeah.
empath, I want to put myself 100% forward. You know, for my patients and for my friends, and I can't give to everybody. I
Yeah.
just can't. And I don't want all that information. And also, if people are long talkers, you know, I'll have to say something about that too, because I just get too tired if they take a long time to make a point. You know,
Yeah.
get to the point. If you want me to respond to it, you know, just tell me quickly. So you have the key is your tone of voice. And you don't
Yeah.
want to be mean or uncaring, but you do need to speak up. And sometimes people are surprised at that. But this is empath self-care. If you
Yeah.
don't do this, you pay a price. If you listen for 2 hours to a dumper at a party, they might think you're the best thing in the world, but you're going to be sick and exhausted and have an emotional
Mhm.
hangover the next day, is what empaths feel. So I'm not willing to do that. I mean, life is short.
Yes,
You
it
know,
is.
each day goes by so quickly. We want to be 100% present with what we're doing and enjoy our lives.
Yeah.
And that might mean weeding out some people.
I'm going to start managing my dumps
Yeah.
because I definitely have dumped a lot in my life on people for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
I definitely have
Mhm.
in really painful moments where I can see where I was suffering at work and I had to give, my, lawyer, let's say, every little detail. He didn't need to know every little detail.
Mhm.
But in my
Mhm.
mind, because I was in so much pain, he needed to know every little detail.
Right.
And now I understand that. And even my husband, I'm going to have to be careful of dumping on him,
Mhm.
which I don't do this stuff anymore because I really don't have a lot of bad going on in my life anymore because I've cleared all of that out,
Oh, excellent.
which has been nice.
Yeah.
But that is something really to be aware of for all of us is how much we're dumping on people.
Yes, and to be accountable for who you are and what energy you're giving off, and to be open to feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's important if, to listen to somebody say, you're really being a victim lately,
Mm-hmm.
or you're really, not not listening, being self-absorbed, because one of the empaths is a narcissist. And that's a very dangerous one for empaths. I wrote a section, The Dangerous Attraction Between Empaths and Narcissists. Empaths are people who are very self-absorbed, and the full-blown narcissists have what's called empathy deficient disorder, meaning they're not capable of empathy as we know it, similarly to sociopaths or psychopaths.
Mm-hmm.
And so the narcissist is attracted to the sensitive, open,
Big-hearted.
wants to listen, wants to give you the benefit of the doubt empath. And I've seen the narcissist eat empaths up, where I do therapy with couples, where one member of the couple is an empath and the other is a narcissist, and the empath, then they have children, and 10 years goes by, and the empath gets physical symptoms and depression and all kinds of things. And then it's hell getting out of those relationships, because then they know exactly what to say to you to
To
keep
get
you
you.
in, to reel
Mhm.
you in. So, it's a red flag. I always tell people and my patients, not, even if you feel in love with a narcissist, sudden, soulmate connection or whatever, don't go there. Spare yourself that, unless that's a lesson you need to go through. It's better to be alone, but it's, they rarely listen to me.
Yeah. Well,
They go forward
the
anyways.
chemical reactions are very difficult, I'm sure, to overlook. Let's talk about empathic illness, because I thought that was really fascinating. There are some illnesses that are very prominent, I guess, or common in empaths.
Yes, there are many illnesses that are common, and empathic illnesses are illnesses that you literally pick up from other people, or symptoms that you pick up.
Like I picked up my brain tumor from my mom's brain tumor.
I don't know.
That
That's
could
for
be
you to
interesting.
explore.
Mm.
Or your empathy. What happens sometimes is your empathy with somebody going through a physical process is so great, you want to take it on in
I
your
asked
body.
for it. I said, I wish God, you gave it to me because I could handle it better.
Yeah, it's a painful way to go, but it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen animals do that too.
My dogs got brain tumors.
Yeah, yeah,
And it got two of my dogs.
yeah. It can happen. And the dogs and animals can be so compassionate. Now, I had a patient who had a very big problem with diabetes, and she was told not to have a baby, because it could risk her life. And she decided to have a baby anyways, and she had her soulmate dog with her. And the dog, the woman got through the pregnancy all right, but the dog got the diabetes, and it killed the dog. And the dog sacrificed himself for this soul companion of this woman. Oh, you get chills, right?
Wow.
I know, but animals can be so compassionate
Yeah.
that
Well,
they
they're
want
so
to
pure.
pure and loving, that they could take that on. And maybe people are listening going, oh, that's crazy. That could never happen. But I'm telling you, it can. The
Mhm.
compassion can go so deep when you're a feeler, when you're an
Yeah.
empath, and when you love someone so much, you might even want to take it on for them.
Yeah. My
And
mom's dog lost all his hair when she got sick.
Yep.
Out of nowhere.
Yep, yep. And for those, sometimes people listen, and they don't. It's beyond their reality to
Yeah.
to see this. And I just, invite everyone to expand just a little bit to feel the power of love.
Yeah. Oh, the audience listening to this gets it for the most
Oh,
part.
okay. All right, great.
Oh yeah. Our people, we're all the same. We're all on the path, and we all have open minds and open hearts to all of this for sure.
Okay.
And Stephen too.
Yeah.
So what are some of the illnesses that are common? I know Hashimoto's. I saw that. I have that.
Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Crohn's disease, anything with the GI tract, back pain,
Mhm.
because the spinal cord is very sensitive, and you could pick up symptoms, into your spinal column. Migraine headaches
Mhm.
are very common. Panic disorder is
Mhm.
common. Depression, anxiety. Uh,
All of these just say Kevin and Maria. My husband and I have all of these, or each of us have some of them.
yeah, yeah. But if they're an empathic illness, then your self-care techniques are putting up the shield, as we were talking about earlier, putting up a shield when you're around people who are toxic. That energy can get into your own body, and if you somatize, if you take it on in your own body, it can turn into a physical symptom
Mhm.
or depression or anxiety. And, as a physician, it makes me, it disturbs me greatly that many physicians don't know how to diagnose empaths.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they just medicate them.
Yeah, well, this was something that you talked about. Actually, it was page 30 and 31, misdiagnosing,
Yeah.
and how it's your mission to re-educate healthcare practitioners on all of this.
Right, because if you're an empath and you have an empathic illness or partially an empathic illness, and part of your anxiety is due to the fact you haven't learned how to shield from other people's anxiety or other people's symptoms, the proper treatment is not going on an antidepressant. It's learning how to shield yourself, learning self-care techniques so that you don't take on other people's illnesses. And how do you know if you have an empathic illness? Take the self-assessment test in front of the book and see if you're an empath. And most likely, if you're an empath, and particularly a physical empath who tends to take things on, then you really need to evaluate yourself in terms of being an empath and not become over-medicated, not become pathologized by the medical profession. So many empaths are given diagnoses and pathologized, and then they buy into it. This is who I am. This is only who I am. And that's not true. If you're not an empath, then you won't get an empathic illness. All right. And then people ask me, what's the difference between a hypochondriac and an empathic illness? A hypochondriac is when you fear illness, and so you think you have everything. An empathic illness is when you actually take it on. I mean, literally, but it's mind-blowing for some healthcare practitioners and the old-time medicine, the old-fashioned, old-school medicine to see this. But, this has been proven, in terms of the workplace. It's been proven that emotions are contagious. And there's been lots of good research on that, and that emotions like fear or anxiety can spread over the workplace just like a virus. And the same is true of positive emotions. If you are happy and you come in and you're inspired about work, then everybody gets to feel your good energy. And so emotions spread. They don't stay static in the person. And so if you're an empath, you'll pick it up. And if you have a lot of physical symptoms that are unexplained, I would look into whether or not you're an empath, if that can contribute to your physical symptoms. And I know when I get a physical symptom, I'll always examine it. I'll always say, what is going on here? What happened today? What do I need to do to take care of myself more? Or if it's my physical symptom, then I'll deal with it. But I always ask, have I absorbed somebody else's emotion? Is this emotion mine or somebody else's?
How do you really know the difference?
Well, I track myself. I notice how I feel before I interact with somebody, and then if I get close to them, I notice if I go through any changes, if I get tired, if I get happier, or if I start feeling sick to my stomach or a headache, whatever. I track that, and then I notice how I feel when I'm away from the person again. And usually if I feel better when I'm away from the person, it's part empathic.
Wow. Okay, so your suggestion, I guess, is, for example, if I'm going somewhere today, before I go, check in with myself,
Yeah.
feel how I'm feeling.
Right.
And then when I get there, feel how I feel in front of the person, feel how I feel after.
Mm-hmm.
And then how I guess that's a great kind of meter for whether you want to be around those people again too, and whether you want to work with them.
Oh, working
Right?
with people you're in sync with it's the most amazing experience. But working with people you're out of sync with is hell.
Yeah, like resonance and dissonance. We've talked about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But you can feel that. If
Mhm.
you are mindful of your energy shifts in your body as you go into an interaction and when you leave, then that's the secret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can tell danger and I can tell if someone's shady and they're going to do something shady
Good.
really easily.
Good.
But what I've started practicing is when I'm meeting them, I'll say, "Do I feel anxiety?" Because a lot of times, like, you'll feel anxiety, like you're starting to clench, or your hands, you're like, there's a little something running, electricity through your
Right.
body, and you're like, where is this coming from? Why can't I be normal? And so I've started tracking that and paying attention to it,
That's great.
because then it's not, maybe not the right energy for you.
Oh, absolutely. Because a lot of times it is the right energy for you, and you want to spend your time well. This time goes by very quickly here on Earth. So you want to be with the right people. You want to be in the right situations that just make your body sing.
Yeah.
Most of the time. There are challenges with everything, but you want it to feel right.
Yeah.
And as an empath, and everyone, you can sense that in your body if you slow it down. The problem is people are moving so quickly. They're out of the rhythms of their body. You don't feel that pulse of life, your intuition. So if you slow it down a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, you begin to feel it, you begin to connect. Or if you don't know how to do that, get into a bathtub and just soak. Or get into mineral springs and just soak. That'll quiet you down. Or have a massage. That will bring down the stimulation level. Because if you're always going faster than your natural rhythm, then
Mm-hmm.
you're out of sync with yourself.
Yeah, that's another thing you mentioned earlier was overscheduling. And I got to see different times in my life. I remember some of my happier times were when I got to act on a movie. And it wasn't necessarily the acting, it was the fact that because I wasn't as strong in that area, I had to give it all my focus.
Hmm.
So I cut everything else out of my life. And just having one thing to focus on felt so good for me. And anytime I got to do that, I was happy. And then when I'd go back to my frenetic, do a billion things, and
Right, right.
I felt so unhappy. And so, in this experience since my surgery, I've really worked to pace my scheduling and have more breaks. And, now when I'm overheating, I'll sit down, I'll do a 16-minute meditation, hypnotherapy session,
Right.
and just catch my breath and rejuvenate. And it helps so much. But overscheduling is something we've all learned to master with the age of multitasking
Right.
and all of that. And it's just so unhealthy for us.
It is. I mean, sometimes you just have a lot to do, so you have to do it. But how you do it is important
Well, and
too.
for how the period of time too.
Yeah,
You can't do
yeah.
it forever.
No, and you don't want to because the more you get in touch with yourself, the more you want to have more open-ended time to enjoy life and look at the birds, and smell the flowers. You want to do that. You want to do that. But,
Mm-hmm.
maybe for a time period you haven't learned that yet. So you need to just go really fast. And, I certainly went through years of that where I had so much to do, seeing patients, going to nursing homes, going to rehab facilities, doing just, but I wanted to do it,
Yeah.
at that point. But right now, no, I don't want to go that fast. I want to feel things more. I want to replenish myself. So it depends on what phase of life you're in. No, and also if you have a lot to do, you can do it with smoothness and kind of a zen-like calm versus tensing up. That when the mind gets involved and it tells you all these negative stories about how your day is going to be when you first wake up, oh, I have so much to do. How am I going to do it? Then you start the day off. I don't think that's a reverent way to start the day. But if you start the day with a little prayer or a little check in, I go to my meditation spot and just meditate for a few minutes so I can start from that place.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want your mind ruling you. Your mind will just get all frantic and how will you do it? You'll get breathless and you'll be
Yeah.
stressed out. You don't want adrenaline rushing through your system all the time, burning out your neurochemicals from stress. That's what happens. You want to have the endorphins flowing. Even if you have a million meetings in a day, you want to do it calm. You want to do it, have the 2-minute breaks between the meetings. You don't want to just go from one to the next, to your phone, to your scheduling, to your notes, whatever. You don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have stop, space, breath, then onward. And that could make all the difference. The mini tune-ups can make a
Yeah.
difference if you have a busy day.
I like that because I think a lot of people, we all will get up and look at the calendar and get
It's a
overwhelmed.
panic. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I really like your take on the fact that there are going to be times where you have to push your body and do all of that,
Yeah.
and that you don't
Yeah.
look at your time when you did work that hard as negatively. So
No.
sometimes I feel like, oh, I was doing it wrong, but really it's just wrong now for me.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
an important distinction.
It is. It is. And it depends on what phase you are in your life. I mean, sometimes you can be in a phase where you have a lot of things to do and you have a lot of creative things to
Mm-hmm.
do and you need to show up and you need to be present and you need to bring yourself to it. I mean, that's all can be exciting depending on your attitude
Mm-hmm.
and how you carry your energy. If you freak yourself out with your mind, it won't be any fun.
Mm-hmm.
No, and you want to have fun. Fun
Yes.
is important. You don't want to get overly serious. And sometimes empaths can get overly serious because there's just so much to deal with. There's so much overload. No, and it's not a negative thing to be an empath. It's an extremely positive thing.
Yeah.
But you have to learn self-care and then expand your gifts. Let go, be uninhibited. Just tune in, to the universe and see where it takes you. Listen to your intuition. Don't pay so much attention to what other people think of you. Unsolicited opinions are toxic, and people offer all kinds of opinions about how you should be, how you should feel, how you should
Mm-hmm.
dress, whatever. Don't listen to those. They're misguided. You need to listen to your inner voice. As an empath, you need to trust yourself. It's not a popularity contest. It's not a consensus. It's just what you feel.
Yeah.
What feels right for you? Can I respect what feels right for me and myself? And have the courage and the daring to say, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it this way. Thank you for your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very empowering when you do that.
Absolutely. Well, I think just knowing all of this is empowering and identifying it. You talk about some other things that were really fascinating, like wound mate relationships. I'd love for you to expand a little bit on that because I think that an empath, you talk so much about empaths' partners and how important they are. So let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that because I've never heard of that before.
Oh, well, you can choose a wound mate partner, and those are people who you have similar wounds with. And so let's say you were abused by your father, you're attracted to someone who's abused by their father, and you bring that damage to a relationship without awareness. If you don't do therapy or you don't try and work through it, and you punish each other with your own wounds. And you get stuck in those relationships, and the ideal thing is to learn from the wounds and to not be in a wound mate relationship, but to recognize if you are in one that the attraction to this person is, do you have a similar wounding?
So how do you punish each other?
If, let's say, you were abused by your father and you have a problem with intimacy and you can't have sex because you're not able to do that, you might punish your partner by withholding sex or, something like that, or you're not
Mm-hmm.
aware that you're doing that, or if, you know, you're angry and you dump anger because you were angry at your parents and you dump it on your partner, that's a punishment.
Mm.
That's all anger from the past working through you, and you're punishing your partner with your unresolved anger, and your partner will punish you with it too. And
Wow.
so it's a very unhealthy, kind of sadistic relationship. But you just, with kindness, with compassion, you notice you're in one. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just about awareness, and it's about, all right, what can I learn from this? It's not a healthy relationship. Maybe I need to shift out of it, or we need to go into couples therapy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to do something about it. You can't just stay in it.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. And then there's the empath relationship, which is interesting. I could never do that. My partner is definitely not an empath.
Mm-hmm.
It would be too overstimulating for me to be with somebody else that would have as many feelings as I do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It'd be too
I know.
much.
Kevin literally will say to me, he's like, what are you doing today? I need to bite you in the neck. And I'm like, honey,
Ah.
you can't bite me in the neck with all your stuff.
Right, right. So you have to have really clear boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And if each of you are emotionally triggered, you have to go off into your own spaces and not look to one another to help heal it. And so you have to know how to decrease the stimulation that could come from being overloaded. Let's say you come home and you're both overloaded. You need
Yeah.
to go your separate ways, not process it with each other, because two empaths on overload, it can be like, setting fire to hay.
Oh, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. You also talk about, well, yeah, the other quote was your soulmate can be your cellmate. I thought that was hilarious.
Yep.
But you talk about sleeping in separate bedrooms is okay. This blew my mind. I've never heard that before.
Ah, okay. Well, sometimes empaths don't like to sleep with their partners, or they want to sleep with their partners just a few days a week, or it could be any variation, whatever you're comfortable with. Because if the partner thrashes around, or snores, or carries a lot of anger, or emotions that are unresolved, when you fall asleep, if you're close to them, you'll pick up on it. And I've had, a patient who was getting her PhD, and her partner was she needs to focus, and her partner was angry all the time. She said, you need to work on your anger. I can't sleep with you. And then finally she said, and he was resisting, and until you work on your anger, I'm going to sleep in the guest bedroom. And he didn't like that at all. So that motivated him to work on his anger.
Ooh.
So, that's just one way. But, for instance, in my relationship, we'll sleep together maybe three nights a week because I need my dream time. I remember my dreams every morning. I need to not talk. I need to be separate. And this can change week by week. This is not fixed. But, he sleeps in one bed, I sleep in another. Or then when we sleep together, it's really wonderful. So you have a choice. A lot of empaths get stuck in beds with somebody that they're unhappy with. I mean, they love their partner, but they don't, too much is going on at night, when they sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And they're afraid they're going to insult their partner, or they're afraid they're going to reject their partner. And it is a creative conversation, that I counsel people how to have the conversations. But it's an important conversation to have. Otherwise, you're a prisoner in that bed. And that's not fun, if you have a snoring partner or a thrashing partner.
Yes. Oh my God, this hits so home because Kevin and I argue. We're very different in bed. So he wants to work in bed. He wants to eat in bed. He clinks and clanks because he's klutzy. So he drops things. He definitely snores. Sorry, honey. And any noise just triggers me. And he feels like a prisoner because I can't handle it. And then I feel like a prisoner because I'm like, wait, he's like, put headphones on, put an eye mask on, put all these things on. I'm like, I can't sleep like that. That doesn't work for me. So then sleep time becomes very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you need to compromise, with what he's doing in bed. But you can also get a very big bed.
We do.
Giant bed. Yeah.
Yes.
And some empaths don't like the cuddle clutch. Some do. Some love to cuddle. But, I had one patient who described that she was caught in the cuddle clutch all night. She wanted out. She couldn't get out. So these are just real life situations where you need to tell your partner, I don't enjoy that.
Yeah.
I need to sleep on the other side of the bed so I can have my space.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep conversations are important. To reach some kind of compromise, or if you're chronically tired, which happens to some empaths, you need to get a good night's sleep. You don't want to just turn to sleeping pills to, go to sleep.
Yeah. Or just walk around suffering because you haven't slept.
Suffer, being overtired. But I won't say most, but a lot of empaths do, is they don't know how to have this conversation. So just talking about it and knowing it's okay to have this conversation. And, some empaths love living in different wings of the house. I've heard every variation of how empaths can live in their living situations. Yeah, different wings, different bedrooms, separate offices, a separate sleep space, anything is fine. You just need to kind of talk it out with each other, and how to make it work, and tell your beloved, I love you. This isn't about me not loving you. No, I love you more than ever, and I'm going to be in better shape for you if I can get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I know. I also have to deal with my dog situation because I can't sleep with them. They don't let me sleep very well.
Oh,
but I feel bad putting them downstairs all alone. You do some retreats, and I wanted to talk about that because I feel like now more than ever, we're all so overwhelmed. And at least for me, I know that vacation in Mexico that I used to live for isn't right for me anymore. I need something different now. I need something that's going to elevate me in another way, and help me and rejuvenate me in a different way. And so I wanted to know more about your retreats that you do.
Oh, yes. Retreats are so important to be able to get away from the mundane world and just have some peace and quiet and replenish yourself. So I offer retreats for empaths and just anybody who's feeling overwhelmed and wants to reconnect to themselves. I give one up at Esalen. I'm giving one this July. Giving one in New York City, giving one in San Francisco. So you can check on my website and find out. But it's a place for empaths to gather together. And I'm thinking about having an empath gathering in LA too next year, or just a replenishment day for empaths.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's so important, just to get around like-minded people who don't think you're crazy and
Yeah.
who get you, and that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you talk to them. And I teach techniques on how to center yourself, how to shield yourself, how to make sure you don't absorb the energy of others, how to maximize your gifts, how to connect to realities other than this mundane world and open up to the world of the heart,
Mm-hmm.
through your own, connection to meditation or walking or water or nature. It's just beautiful to spend time with your empath self who usually has been ignored. So I invite everyone to come. Um, and it's just an amazing experience. And I love being out in nature giving the retreats. That's my favorite.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm definitely going to have to come. Um, Judith, I have about 1,000 more questions, but I'm not going to energy vampire you more. I'm kidding. I recommend the book to anybody who's interested in getting to know themselves better. And if you're listening to this, it's probably because you have a sneaking suspicion you are an empath, and or maybe you're with one and you can understand better how to be with them. But Judith, before I let you go, we always ask everyone, what is one thing you're doing to get better every day? Is there something new you're taking on, or?
It's always going deeper within myself, in my meditation practice, expanding my heart more, being a little bit more compassionate with myself and others, taking care of myself better, and always looking up, never just looking down, always looking up at the stars, and making sure I have that time to connect with the universe and, beyond any concerns of this world, to take care of myself in that particular way. And that sparks my creativity and wellness.
I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I hope you got to maybe see yourself, maybe learn a little something something. Steven's smiling real big in the studio, and the engineer. What's the smiles for, Steven?
Nothing. It's just funny because I'm the skeptic,
Yes, you are the skeptic.
and it it's just interesting to me because I
Here we
enjoy.
go.
I
Here
en-
we go. Here
It-
comes Con.
it's fun to see how people interpret like humanity, because like I connect with everything she says,
Mm-hmm.
and I took the test online,
You did.
and I'm 69 out of 80. I'm a super empath,
You're a super empath.
apparently.
Wow.
And I just think it's interesting because everyone's trying to find the reasons for why things are the way they are. And I can't say that my way of doing it's any better than anyone else's.
Mhm.
So hers is more, you can feel other people's feelings and you take on their pain. And I interpret it more as being hyper observant and being subconscious of the body language of all of those around you,
Mhm.
because you can always know when something's wrong with somebody, and you can always know if somebody's upset, and you can
Mhm.
always kind of pick up on these cues. And I like to look at it scientifically, which is so different from what we were talking about in terms of if you enter a room and somebody's giving you bad vibes. I like to like notice that and then start observing them to see like what are the things that are giving me the bad vibes.
Mhm.
Is it their body language? Is it their smell? Is it something that I'm so predisposed to humans doing that this human doesn't do? And what is it that's rubbing me the wrong way with that person? But she had such an interesting take and such an interesting way of observing people's psychiatry and how they interact with the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a whole other level when you're that's your practice, right? Like, so she studies people, with psychiatry, and then she happens to be an empath, so she's going to understand them even more. And then she's got science to back up so much, which we didn't even really get into the science end of it so much. Yeah, it's fascinating. So you're a super empath. Did you feel like you knew that before?
I mean, I felt like I still wouldn't call myself an empath. I'm for some reason I'm not a big fan of these terms because I feel like I'm just a human, and I feel like we like to attribute titles to things that.
Steven, you're not just anything.
Thanks, Maria. But I just, to me, I feel that every human on some level picks up on these cues and has it, and I think more people just pick up on more than others.
Exactly. But that's what an empath is, the one that picks up more than others.
I mean, if being an empath means, like always feeling awkward in social situations and not wanting to deal with people after a certain amount of number limit of time, then yeah, always doing the Irish goodbye, definitely the way I do it.
It's so funny.
But there's extroverted empaths. I'm really extroverted. I actually get my energy from talking to people. But if you over talkers and
Yeah.
people who like every time there's one person in particular, every time I've seen them the past 6 months, they've cried about something. And like the first 3 times, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so there for you. But by the end, I'm like, that just took an hour out of my
Life.
massive day of work.
Yeah.
And I can't, I need to go to sleep now.
Yeah.
So I like how she distinguishes the differences because I think that we all take it on differently. Because I would argue with Steven even that I think some people can pick up the cues, but some people I'm like, you have no cue of anything you're
Some
putting on
people,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, her relationship stuff made a lot of sense to me. I can definitely pinpoint things that caused the downfall of my past relationship due to always having to sleep together in the same bed, always having to constantly be on that on switch of like emotional codependency, needing to be there always.
Yeah.
It's kind of super draining. I mean, it's very impressive what what you and Kevin can do, especially like with Kevin and AfterBuzz. Like I'm there for all the hosts 6 days a week, but what it leads to is on my Saturday I'm completely drained and I can't even motivate myself to do anything because I've just been so on board for everyone else that I just haven't been taking the time for me. Like even my birthday was spent in my room trying to avoid depression. It's very interesting to hear her put it in those guidelines that make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because when you overtax your energy for other people so much and don't give yourself that time, then it can lead to like more serious things happening.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't think Kevin and I have it mastered. I think it's so hard. Like, I started realizing certain things by reading this book, and I'm like, oh, because we're working together as well as being together. It's really hard. So, we've made it work, but there's definitely things that need some fixing for sure. So,
And you're not the most sensitive in terms of like critique, which I thought was really interesting when she said that it's the opinion you ask for and people give you opinions you don't want. I always love the story when Kevin tells us, he says, when he first met you and you ask, well, what is it going to take to be this? And he says, well, you're going to have to lose 34 pounds.
mm-hmm.
And I always like admired that about you in terms of a lot of people could have taken that and just been like, well, F you.
Yeah.
But you asked for the opinion, took it, and now it's no coincidence that you are who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but what I realized with her is that there are different types of empaths. There isn't one definition, I feel like. And so I can be, and I think the Gemini thing is real, I can be a little bit of both sometimes. Like sometimes I go to parties and I just sit there and I'm like, and I'm smiling and I'm like, and I didn't understand that I didn't want to be there because it didn't make sense to me. Because I am somebody who is fun and outgoing. But there are a lot of times when I'm out and I'm not happy and I don't know why. And it's probably the energy of the room maybe, or the person I'm with. which I've tried to manage who I'm spending those evenings with now, like who I'm going to go with that isn't going to take my energy. Like I was excited to go to Gay Pride with you, Steph, because I'm like, I know you bring energy, you don't take energy, right? So, but then at the same time, so when she talks about like you can't be in big crowds, I hate big crowds, but then
Yeah.
I also love having a huge, massive party.
Yeah.
But I'm also hand selecting all those people because I want them here. And so I guess,
And you were in your space. Like I think you've become better at like fine tuning your environments because
yeah,
like now you can and you deserve that. Like she was explaining like we deserve to leave a room or say no when we don't want to do it.
yeah. Yeah, so I think it's kind of, Stephen, like it's not a one size fits all. Like I had a little bit of a lot of things
Mhm.
like in me.
I'm
It's
similar
just
like that.
recognizing that we have a higher sensitivity level. Like I even understand now, like when Kevin gets mad at you when people came into the studio and they were all screaming and whatever, like maybe you do have sensitivities to noise, right?
I mean, I definitely do, but I've been working on it.
Okay. But here's the thing. Now I understand that better, right?
Yeah.
But I even understand it about myself better. Like this book and this interview has opened my eyes to so much I didn't understand about myself. And that's why I love doing this show because I'm
Mhm.
learning every week. And so I understand why. And she says, like, do you get scared easily? I mean, one of Kevin's biggest things, he's like, Marie, you've got to figure this out because I get startled so easily. I mean,
You've been
it's
in fight or flight for years, though.
yeah. So, there's obviously that. It's not just because, I tested that I'm an empath, right? And you tested higher than me. I had 14 of the 15.
His was
Or
on the online.
oh, it was different.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I can take
mine
the book one after this with you.
okay. But I know that loud noises, especially after brain surgery, oh my God, I can't handle any yelling. First of all, I couldn't handle yelling anyway because I grew up with so much of it. I can't handle it at all anymore. But yeah, I learned so much and understanding even the overscheduling thing. Like Kev would get so, bummed at me. He's like, all these other people, they're going after it and they're doing these, meeting after meeting and why can't you? And I'm like, I don't know. I just can't. It's too much for me. Like my brain, it's too many things stacked in a day makes me insane. If I'm in one place and I have a lot to do, I'm easy. But if I have to move from place to place to place to place to place and I got to figure out directions and this, that is not my happy place. I'm not good at that. But I think, we start to learn ourselves more and more, and even alone time. I never respected the fact that I need alone time until last night when I was alone and I was reading about this and I realized, oh, like Kevin and I probably infect each other so much. We both have so many traumas and so many things that we're slinging around to each other at times. And um, so, it's not easy. That's why they say relationships are hard, people, you know?
Have you been able to pinpoint at all those moments that take you out of things?
What do you mean?
Well, for me, it's a switch. I can be completely content in a social situation 1 second, then something energy-wise will change, and I'll just immediately need to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
Have you been able to pinpoint any of those moments for you that you like, things that you know happen in the area that you're like, okay, it's time for me to go? Or within yourself that you're just like, I know this feeling.
I don't know if I can answer that right now, but I know I'm starting to pay attention to it and I will see the pattern and start to figure it out for sure. Like I said to her, even when I'm sitting and interviewing someone or meeting someone, I'm starting to pay attention to how I feel and starting to trust that there's a reason why I feel like that. So whether it's their thoughts are creating the anxiety to me, right? Because why would you have anxiety just sitting with somebody? So if you're uncomfortable when you're sitting there with them, it's for a reason. And you may not know why, but it could be because of their thoughts and their thoughts about you. And maybe they're judging you as they're sitting there and you feel it, but you don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm starting to pay attention, basically. So I'm going to reread this whole book And I have an advanced copy of her next book.
Yes,
The next one's called
queen.
Thriving as an Empath. But yeah, I think here's the thing, Stephen, I think that you're also hitting on is, in a sense, is a lot of these words are so overused. We're, we live in a culture where everyone adopts everyone else's issue. It's like, oh my God, I have so much anxiety. And
ADD.
everyone's got ADD, everyone's got anxiety, everyone's got low blood sugar. Oh my God, if I don't eat, I have low blood sugar. And it's like, no, like there's real low blood sugar. Do you know what I mean? So, but I did it too. I used to do it just like everybody else. So I think, and everybody's, an intuitive or an empath. And so
it's difficult to weed out what is legitimate and what's not.
Exactly. But, I think that, with more information, because a lot of people that say those things haven't read much about them and studied them. So
Yeah.
that's why when we sit here with a professional who has, cultivated work over a 25 years time span, like, we'll listen to her.
And regardless if you're an empath or highly sensitive person, everyone's affected by toxic energy and people who just want to suck the life out of you or bad work environments. Like, your body's not stupid. Like, it will tell you when things are happening even if you don't realize it.
Yeah. I'm going to try to find the energy vampire thing.
Oh my God, it's so funny because people who don't hang out with you and Kevin, they do have this, they'll like do this vampire face, like in secrecy after they've like known that they've been around an energy like that. So when I read her book, I was like, oh my God, you guys are on the exact same page. It's the perfect name for people.
Ready? So here, go ahead, Steven.
I was just going to say that Steph's actually so right that I don't know if you see it from the third person, Maria, but people line up for your attention and your and Kevin's attention, and it's almost like a lurking body language that's kind of like a vampire, because like they're just like, it's like they're standing just watching, waiting to pounce. Like, when are they gonna
Sometimes
finish their
I feel it.
sentence?
I mean, no, I always feel it. I know. I just pray that they're coming with good.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we go, I'm just going to share this one part with you. So it's a self-assessment, actually. How do you know if you have met an energy vampire? Here are some warning signs. You feel tired and want to go to sleep. You're suddenly in a terrible mood. You feel sick. You don't feel seen or heard. You reach for sugar or carbs for a boost. You start doubting yourself and becoming self-critical. You become anxious, angry, or negative when you didn't feel that way before. You feel shamed, controlled, or judged.
I'll have one of everything, please.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So
It's triggering. That's a trigger
and what we
paragraph.
have to watch out for is we can also be the energy vampires. And so
I try so hard now, thanks to you and Kev. But like, I notice it now. At least like when I'm doing it, I'm like,
yeah.
wait a second, what am I doing?
Yeah. Well,
And I
that's
try to
like the best
apologize
thing
for
is
it.
when we start to realize it. Like even when she was talking about dumping, I'm like, oh shit, I used to dump. Oh my God, I got to watch out to make sure I don't continue doing that.
I gotta ask you something on the topic of dumping. How many other legends in this world do you think were actually just somebody taking a dump? Going back to
Basketball?
Pierce, yeah.
Well, this is a great way to close this.
Full circle.
Well, I honestly feel like if any other legend had the similar moment, that would have been their moment to come out and say, yeah, me too. And had a whole Me Too movement for poop. That would have been funny. And on that note, thanks for listening, guys.
Oh my God,
I hope
I
you
was so
guys have an
glad.
amazing week. Enjoy your day. Enjoy all this newfound knowledge. Get this book. I promise. This is my favorite book I've read in a long time.
Yes.
And I think it will be really helpful for you. If you want to learn more about Dr. Orloff's services and resources, as well as purchase any of her books, including the Empath Survival Guide, you can visit her website at drjudithorloff.com. In the meantime, follow us at Maria Menounos, at Steph Sabra, at judith.orloff.md. That's Steve. And remember, be nice people, make good choices, and be present.